afternoon, everyone. I thank you so much for being here. I'm New York City Council Speaker Adrienne Adams, and I am joined by council leaders, Deputy Speaker Diana Ayala, Finance Committee Chair Justin Brannan, and Council Member Carlina Rivera. We're standing here on Wall Street, historical Wall Street, outside of the stock exchange and this building with Trump's name on it, in the heart of the United States financial capital, because he is sending us toward a crisis. Day by day, stocks are plunging. The industries that power New York City's economy, finance, fashion, and technology are being endangered with the city's finances. We're here today to raise the alarm about the disastrous impacts of Trump's tariffs. This is not only threatening to increase prices for essential goods, but also to send our city and national economy into a tailspin. This will hurt small businesses, working families, and everyday New Yorkers. Trump is sabotaging our economy with the largest tax hike in over 50 years. We're here because this continued chaos, if allowed to continue, will devastate New York City and the entire United States. And we're here because our own mayor can't seem to clearly say or understand that this will be damaging to the city he is responsible for managing. Consumers will see prices skyrocket for everyday goods like groceries and electronics. According to a Yale Budget Lab study, this will cost the average household $3,800 per year in additional expenses. New Yorkers are already facing an affordability crisis, and this only threatens to make it a lot worse. Trump's tariffs will also hurt our small businesses, with restaurants and retail shops taking a hit to their bottom lines. And this threatens more than 250,000 jobs right here in New York, the city that we all love. The economic shock is already affecting your retirement accounts. Millions of Americans with 401ks have already seen lost retirement funds drop. If Trump will not stop this madness, his allies in Congress who represent New York must step up to put New Yorkers first. We're calling on Representatives Nicole Maliotakis, Andrew Garbarino, Nick LaLota, Mike Lawler, Elise Stefanik, Claudia Tenney, and Nick Langworthy. These Trump allies must answer to New Yorkers, and they must answer to their own neighbors. As stewards of the city's fiscal health, we have a responsibility to raise the alarm on how these tariffs will harm our local economy. As we laid out in our preliminary budget response last week, there is already risk from economic uncertainty, but the most significant risk is the unnecessary volatility caused by the Trump administration's actions. This will be a self-inflicted injury so severe that no amount of fiscal management can contain it. Let me be clear. Despite our preparation for economic risks on the city level, we can only do so much to blunt the most devastating consequences. The council's budget response identified a $1.9 billion to preserve for new needs and budgetary risks. But when Trump and his allies are coming after your Medicaid, SNAP benefits, jobs, housing, and retirement funds, while raising prices you pay, there is no safeguard. These tariffs Trump is imposing are the steepest in nearly a century, even worse than in 1930, when new tariffs worsened the Great Depression. Our national economy started off this year showing real signs of stability. But in one fell swoop, everybody, Trump has managed to wreak havoc, making history with the worst stock market performance in the beginning of any presidency in modern history. Trump's allies in the New York congressional delegation have an obligation to the people of New York. If they can't prioritize working families in New York, they should rethink coming home to their own neighbors in New York. New Yorkers and all Americans deserve better than this. Now I want to call up our finance chair, Council Member Justin Brannan, to the podium.
Thank you, Speaker. Thank you all for being here. What we're seeing coming out of the White House over the past few days is nothing short of reckless economic vandalism. And it's not just reckless, it's deliberate. Let's call it what it is. It's a man-made recession engineered for political theater with working families left holding the bag. Before this chaos, as the Speaker just said, the economy was on stable footing. The markets were steady, jobs were strong, things weren't perfect, but we were headed in the right direction. Then Trump came along and decided to blow it all up. And now the markets are tanking, jobs are at risk, consumer and business confidence is sinking, and it's the people at the bottom, the poor and the working class in New York, who are going to feel it first and worst. Even if you don't have a dime in the stock market, this will hit you and your family. Tariffs are a tax hike on everyday people. Groceries, clothing, school supplies in September, everything is going to cost more. That's not policy, that's punishment. And let's be clear, these tariffs are being imposed without congressional input, even though the Constitution clearly gives Congress authority over commerce. Trump is treating global trade like a reality show, except there's no script, no plan, and no off-ramp. Trump compares this chaos to a bitter pill that we all need to swallow. Try telling that to a New Yorker that's living paycheck to paycheck. Try telling that to a family that's already drowning in rent and childcare costs. Wall Street drives nearly 20% of New York City's economy. When markets drop, like they have since these tariffs were announced, we feel it fast. That's the money that we use to pay our teachers, our cops, and our firefighters. That's how we fund our parks, our public hospitals, and our schools, all of which will cost more to deliver because the tariffs will supercharge inflation. That's why the City Council has taken a responsible, clear-eyed approach in this year's budget process. We've withheld close to $2 billion in expected revenue, money that we believe the city has because we're watching closely to see how these tariffs shake out. If and when we start to see serious impacts to our economy, we want to be ready to plug that $2 billion into the programs and services that New Yorkers rely on most. That's what leadership looks like, because the ripple effects of this are real. When businesses lose confidence, they'll pull back. When people are afraid, they'll stop spending. And when spending dries up, jobs disappear, tourism drops, small businesses suffer. That means less revenue, fewer services, and more people slipping through the cracks. This isn't speculation. It's ideology. Democrats, it's not ideology. Democrats, Republicans, Wall Street, banks, economists, even Elon Musk and Rand Paul have all decried these tariffs as reckless and destructive. When the far left and right agree on something being a disaster, maybe, just maybe, we should listen. So I'll ask again, just as the Speaker said, where is Congress? Where are the Republicans willing to stand up to Trump and say enough is enough? Do they serve the president or do they serve the people? Where are the so-called champions of working people and small businesses in this moment? Because Trump didn't just start a trade war with China, he picked a fight with working families in New York. And the silence from his allies is as dangerous as the policies itself. Here in New York City, the council is doing everything we can. We're working overtime to protect the people we represent, to keep the city afloat and strong in the face of this man-made economic disaster. But we shouldn't be doing it alone. What we're seeing out of the White House again is reckless economic vandalism, and it's everyday New Yorkers who will pay the price. The New York City Council will not sit back and let this happen. We'll fight like hell for the people who make the city work because they deserve leadership and not chaos. Thank you.
One question, one follow-up for everyone. We'll start with Jeff.
To oversimplify, the council's always the one that's saying let's spend more, and the mayor's always saying we have less money. In this situation, despite him not speaking up against it, is there agreement? I mean, is he also trying to be conservative in his economic forecast in this situation? Or where's the disagreement here when it comes to savings for the 26 budget?
Well, the finance chair, and I'll let him continue with this, mentioned that we are putting aside $1.9 billion. So we're doing our part as the council as far as reserves for the people of the city. Justin, I don't know if you want to add to that.
Sure. I think the issue, and this is something we've been fighting for since the first budget, is that we just need honesty and truth in they're forecasting. Over the past 3 years, every year there's a different excuse as to why we can't fund essential city services, and it becomes the boy who cried wolf at this point. Right? First, it was a residual of COVID impact. Then it was the migrant crisis was going to bankrupt the city, which we knew was a bunch of baloney. We need just an honest accounting. If we can't agree on how much money is there to save or to allocate, then we're going to have a really tough time. We are clear-eyed and sober about the reality that we're in right now, but we're not going to let this administration continue with this false austerity nonsense that we don't have the money we need right now to invest in what's going to protect us in this crucial moment. I think we're still waiting for them to agree that money is there. We know it's there. We've always been proved right in the end. When we say there's more money, inevitably OMB 6 months later says the council was right. But we haven't even started talking to them. Part of the problem is that we don't have a dance partner right now on the other side of City Hall. We're fighting like hell and getting prepared, and they're not saying a word.
Stay there, Justin.
So, Speaker and Chair Brannan, there's another issue here in the room, which is the Trump plus Clinton is actually actively undermining your public finances right now, aside from the market, clawing back $80 billion
Yes.
in city banking
Right.
that caused checks to be bounced, and actually impounding money, hundreds of millions for FEMA.
That's right.
So right now, as you speak, you don't know what money that Congress already appropriated under Biden.
That's right.
You have to spend, and the Republican plan put forward by the Republicans in Congress actually calls for an $800 billion cut to Medicaid.
Yep.
50% of the people walking by here on the street
Right.
are buying Medicaid.
That's right.
Right.
So, I mean, can you talk about that other thing? He's going against what Richard Nixon did in terms of revenue sharing.
Yeah.
Mention that.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think we're fighting a bunch of different battles at once, right? We're dealing with 3 years of cuts and pegs to our budget, which were never necessary in the first place, right? We're dealing with a migrant crisis that the mayor promised us was going to bankrupt the city, which did not bankrupt the city. And now we're dealing with an administration in Washington that is just taking money out of our account while we're asleep at night. Again, the problem we have is that we have an administration at City Hall who is compromised, if not continuing to collude with the federal government, and is not fighting back. When Elon Musk took that first $80 million, it took almost 6 days for this administration to sue to get the money back. That is not the urgency that this moment calls for. So we're putting forward a plan saying, look, we've identified $2 billion in extra revenue that we're not going to allocate, that we want to keep our powder dry. And it would be nice if we had City Hall saying, yes, that money is there, City Council, that tax revenue, the economy is strong until Trump started screwing everything up. Let's pass a budget that protects New Yorkers. But we need a dance partner. And right now we've got a guy who's playing this, if you have nothing nice to say, don't say anything at all. That is not what this moment calls for.
Do we have any plans to block ICE on Rikers? Right now, we're taking a look at the executive order. We are taking a look at what it came down to. I don't think that there's any question about what all of this is about. It was about what we thought it was about. Promises made, promises kept. But we are looking at the executive order at this time when it comes to Rikers and ICE.
We have a statement out on
We
that.
do have a statement out on that.
I'm going to go to city and state.
Sure. I mean, we have our own sort of city versions of those plans where we can hopefully try to backfill. But look, there isn't a city in this country that can afford or that can absorb wholesale federal cuts, right? We have almost 10% of our budget is federal cuts and federal subsidies. So, and what's even more concerning is that those subsidies permeate the entire budget. So we're looking at everything, right? We know where we're vulnerable, and it's just about every agency has some federal grants. Obviously, emergency food assistance and housing assistance would be top priority, but we're trying to triage everything right now.
Great. Any other questions?
The dynamic we have now is that if we put $2 billion aside, it's keeping our powder dry, right? The dynamic we have now, and it depends on who you ask, they have different feelings about it. If we have money we can set aside, we're going to do it. We're also afraid that if we put too much money aside, we've never had a president who's had his nose so far into New York City politics, right? If we put aside $10 billion in reserves, what do you think they're going to do? They're going to say, well, the city can afford $10 billion in cuts. So we would rather allocate that money towards programs that New Yorkers rely on, especially our most vulnerable, than make ourselves vulnerable to more cuts from Washington.
And something else that we need to remember also, Deputy Speaker just reminded, it was the City Council that created the Rainy Day Fund.
That's right.
So we are really the fiscal parties who are responsible to the City of New York, not the other side of City Hall. So that Rainy Day Fund now that we have had for the people of the City of New York, that comes from your City Council.
Just a quick follow-up. What about having a 10-cent stock transfer tax on every $100 that's changing hands? Because you could make money for the city and state of New York on every trade, whether up or down. I mean, when they started rebating it back in 1982, since it cost $400 million.
Yeah. Please send us your resume for the finance team.
Please do, Bob.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
We have an opening.